What's up, guys? Welcome back to another DIY video, and today we're going to be working on my dad's Ford Raptor. He's got 138,000 kilometers on the truck, and the brakes have never been changed, so we're going to change the front brakes on it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is loosen off all the wheel nuts, or at least crack them loose. So next, you want to jack up the truck. Take a 2x4 on top of your jacking pad on the jack, stick it underneath the frame rail, and just give her hell. Forgot to mention, make sure the e-brake is on and that you have the back wheels chalked. Okay, so once you got the wheel up in the air enough that you can spin it, that's literally all that you need. Once you got it up, you want to grab your breaker bar and the 21mm socket again, or I like to use an impact gun because they're already loose. Then just knock the wheel off. For safety reasons, take the wheel, flip it down so that it's face up. Stuff it underneath the front end of the truck. That way if it falls off the jack or off your axle stand, then it won't be hitting the ground, it'll just be hitting this wheel. You'd rather wreck the wheel than wreck the whole underside of the truck or your garage. On the back side of the caliper, you're going to have a bolt on the top and on the bottom connecting the caliper to the caliper bracket. One's right here, one's right down here. Both of these are 13mm. Also, they won't be that tight. Alright, here you go. Now this is just to keep all the pressure off the brake line. Yeah, you can pull your pads out. To do that, if you plan on keeping the rotors that are already on here, your best bet is to use like a flathead screwdriver with a microfiber cloth over it to get in behind. But since these rotors are completely trashed and the pads are completely trashed as well, see that there is no life left on there. This is where the problem was for sure. Okay, for the caliper bracket, grab your bar, and you're going to have a 21mm bolt up top, 21mm bolt on the bottom. These ones are a lot of fun. Once you have them to the point that they're loose enough to turn by a ratchet, go ahead and grab yourself a ratchet, take them the rest of the way out. we go, brackets off. For this next part, you're going to need a BFH, otherwise known as a big hammer. Also, you don't really need to hear me beating the crap out of this, so I'm going to put some music on right about now. That is really on there. So, after a lot of persuasion, the rotor came off. My best friend during that was some PB Blaster. Stuff works wonders. You spray it around the hub here, and then it sinks in, gets to all this little bit of rust around here, comes right off. Okay, next thing you want to do is grab your new rotor. So once you got your new rotor and you've tossed that on, you're going to want to take your caliper bracket. On the bracket, there's going to be these sliders. You just pop them off. Grab by the rubber, and it pops right out. You're going to want to take these, and then you take the rubber off the other side as well. And you're going to want to clean that pin right down. So to do that, you're going to need some brake clean, and to re-lube them back up so that they slide properly, you're going to need some silicone lube. So take it, put it into the rag, and just spray it down inside the rag. Wipe it off. Alright, you can see now this one's nice and clean. You only need a little bit of this silicone lube, right? Just that much. Oh, doesn't want to focus. Alright. Just a dab. You want to take it, you want to spread it onto here evenly. The reason I say you only need a little bit is no matter what you do or how much you put on, there's only so much room inside of the caliper bracket. So if you put a bunch on here, it's all, you know, fine and dandy until you go to put it back in the bracket. It's just going to make a huge mess popping out. So yeah, once you got that cleaned up, grab that little boot. You want to put that little boot back on it. That clips in on that end, and then you pop it back in just like so. And you should notice it's got, once you work it in a little bit, it's got a little bit of spring to it. And you just do the same on the other side. So next, if your brake pads came with new retaining clips or channels, they're going to be right in here, little metal clips. And you're going to want to pop these ones out and then put the new ones in. The pads I bought didn't come with those, so what I'm going to do is just take a wire brush, clean them up real nice so that they're not all gunked up and the pads can still slide. So now, once everything on here is cleaned up, you're going to want to toss it back on the truck. Now, if you remember, these are the really tight ones. So you're going to want to grab your breaker bar and make sure they're nice and tight again. So now you're here, and you got the bracket back on. You got to put the pistons back in on the brake caliper. Now, there's some people who have different methods for this. Some like to use one-man bleeder. Some like to actually bleed the brakes when they do it. For me, popping off the brake reservoir cap and just using one of the pads, pressing the pistons back in, works just fine. I've done this on plenty of vehicles, and I've never once had an ABS system, throw a code or anything like that for it or act all wonky. Every time, it's worked just fine. So on this truck, right here, that's your brake fluid reservoir. If you don't top up your brake fluid in between changing your brakes, this level will go down, and then as you put the pistons back in, it'll go back up to the maximum line. A lot of people recommend that you top up the brake fluid while the brakes wear so that you still get good braking power. There was really no difference on this truck. This is, again, another thing that people have different methods for. The method I use that has always worked for me is a C-clamp and one of the old brake pads. One of those. You throw the brake pad against the pistons, and then you put the C-clamp over top of the brake pad, and then you just start squeezing down, and the pistons will go back into the caliper. So once you got the pistons pushed all the way in, you want to grab your new brake pads, and then match them up with the old ones. Make sure that they're the exact same brake pads. And also on this truck, there is one brake pad for the back side, which is already on, that has two little humps on the outer edge. Those go to the piston, each piston for the caliper. So you want to make sure that that one goes on the back, and then the one that's just got a straight fluid edge goes on the front. You slide them into those channels, push, they're on there. Now, grab your caliper. You're going to want to put that, make sure you turn it back the way it's supposed to be so that your line's not kinked. Slide that back on. Might have to push the slider pins in to get the caliper to fit over it. That's on. Grab those first two 13 millimeters. Grab your wrench or ratchet. Tighten these down. When you took them off, they weren't really that tight, so when you put them back on, snug them up. Once they're nice and snug, let's give them a little bit extra just to make sure that they seat. There you go. You got your new brakes on your truck. Before you just, throw the wheel on, back it out, and then try and take off, remember when you get into the truck and when you turn it on, pump the brakes a few times. You want to get the pistons to come back out and press the pads against the rotor, or else you are going to have no stopping power at all. Luckily, I got a long driveway, so I can just kind of back it out, just let it roll and hit them. But, yeah, be safe. Oh, that's big. Little trick I've learned from watching like Brian's Mobile One and other automotive YouTube channels. When you go to put on like a car wheel, it's not that heavy, maybe 40 pounds. You go to put one of these on, you'll break your back if you try and lift it. So just sit down on the ground. This part, the outer tread of the wheel, put your legs on either side of it, and then just lift the wheel up by pressing your legs together. And then you can just use your hands to align it and pop it on the studs. So the factory torque spec for Ford aluminum factory wheels is in between 90 and 95. Where you ask, kind of varies what the actual torque spec is. So to make sure that your wheel doesn't fly off or that you don't tighten it down so much that you snap a stud, it's best that you just use a torque bar, set it to 92, 93 foot-pounds, and crank them on there nice. Come back a week and recheck them. Just make sure they're all snugged up. Please make sure that when you are done, you put this reservoir cap back on the brake reservoir. So I realized yesterday after making that video that I was so strapped for daylight that I never made an outro. So if you like this video and you want to see more like it, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.